Hello, I'm glad you're here. I'm NatsMan, and I'm reading the Bible, from the beginning to the end, from Genesis to Revelations. Please join me in this journey and make God's Word a part of your everyday life. Please hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified every time I post a new video and you won't miss any parts of this Bible read. This is the recap summary of the book of James, and we'll start right in. The book of James was written by James, the brother of Jesus, and it was written to Jewish Christians scattered among the nations. These believers were facing hardships, persecution, and everyday pressures that tested their faith. James writes with a clear purpose to show what genuine faith looks like in action. This is not a book of abstract theology. It is a call to live out faith in real life. Their trials and spiritual growth spoke of in James 1, 2 through 18. James begins by addressing the suffering. He says, "Count it all joy when you fall into various trials." Trials are not joyful themselves, but they produce endurance, and endurance leads to spiritual maturity. God uses trials to shape believers into people who lack nothing. James also makes a clear distinction that trials test faith and come from outside, and that temptation comes from sinful desire within. God does not tempt anyone. Instead, he is the giver of every good and perfect gift. Trusting God's goodness is foundational to faithful living. In James 1, 19 through 27, he speaks of hearing and doing the word. He urges believers to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. True faith is not just listening to God's word, it's obeying it. God's word acts like a mirror, revealing who we are. Blessings come when believers respond with action, not forgetfulness. James defines true religion as caring for the vulnerable and living a life distinct from the world. No favoritism in church is spoke of in James 2, 1 through 13. James confronts favoritism, especially toward the wealthy. Treating people differently based on appearance or status contradicts God's law of love. Believers are reminded that God often chooses the poor in the world to be rich in faith. Mercy, not judgment, reflects the heart of God. James 2, 14 through 26 speaks of faith through works. One of James' most well-known teachings is clear: faith without works is dead. James is not saying works save us, but that living faith produces obedience. Mere belief, even correct belief, is not enough. True faith is demonstrated through action. Abraham and Rahab are used as examples of faith that acted when tested. In James 3, it speaks of the tongue and true wisdom. James warns about the power of the tongue. Though small, it can cause great harm. No one can fully control it without God's help. He contrasts two kinds of wisdom: earthly wisdom marked by jealousy and disorder, and heavenly wisdom, which is pure, peaceful, gentle, merciful, and sincere. Spiritual maturity shows itself in wise speech and humble conduct. Worldliness and humility in James 4, James exposes the dangers of pride and worldliness. Friendship with the world leads to conflict with God. The solution is humility. Submit to God, resist the devil, draw near to God. James reminds believers that life is brief and dependent on God's will. Faith recognizes God's control over tomorrow. In James 5, patience, prayer, and community, James warns the wealthy who oppress others while encouraging suffering believers to be patient and trust God's judgment. The book closes with a strong emphasis on prayer. Prayer sustains believers in suffering, joy, sickness, and restoration. The community of faith is responsible for caring for and restoring one another. A closing thought is that the message of James is simple but challenging. Real faith shows up in how we live. Faith endures trials, obeys God's word, and controls the tongue, and rejects favoritism. It walks humbly and depends on prayer. James calls believers to a faith that is alive, visible, and obedient. That was the book of James. I want to thank you for joining me in this project, in this endeavor to read the entire Bible. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoy reading it. Please feel free to comment if you'd like, and also please subscribe and give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If this is your first visit to NatsMan Reads the Bible, I leave a link in the description below to the intro video that explains what it is I'm working to accomplish here. I hope you come back for the next video. Until then, thank you. I hope you have a blessed day. I'm NatsMan, and I'm out.